My name is Cassy Summers. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. Hello, everybody. It is my pleasure today to introduce you to this amazing woman, Heather Nicols. She's known for her brilliance with business, her magic with bodies, and sexualness. I love all the stuff you create around that. And I would also say, Heather, you have this really dynamic capacity with asking questions and being really curious and kind of like exploring. I've noticed not only are you exploring consciousness and like out here with people, but you seem to ask questions for yourself continuously. I really love that. It's so inspiring. So I thought what a gift to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. So what really sparked it, I was like, I need to talk to you. Like, I really want to have this conversation was actually in a thread that you had created, and people were kind of looking at what else is possible with COVID, with restrictions, there's all this stuff coming up and all this information. And you had made just this little simple post and you said, use the word intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to say more? I don't want to misquote what you said, but it was.
Oh gosh, I don't remember. I was like, what are we talking about again?
So it was like you were instead of being intrigued with COVID, you were looking to intrigue with possibility. It was along those lines. And I was like, wow. Because I noticed right away for me too. I was like, oh, I've been pretty intrigued by this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the definition of intrigue is. It'd be interesting to look, but to me, it's like this, it's like putting your, it's like where you put your curiosity, basically, in a way, it's like where you direct it and what you sort of, when you're intrigued by limitation, you're basically kind of fixated on it. Like you're buying it as real for one, which means that you're stuck by it because you've bought it as real.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times then the next step from there is resistance and reaction to it. But like all of this sort of like obsession around it and how can I change this and how can I get out of this and one of the things we talk about a lot in Access Consciousness is don't try to change this reality, create a totally different one, and if you're intrigued by the rules and the regulations and the government control and the uptick of communism and, all these things that are going on, then you're actually perpetuating that as a reality. You're feeding it with your energy rather than going, well, that's interesting. And over here in my universe, there's miracles occurring every moment of every day,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And that's also part of like the asking of questions. Like for me, that's why I ask so many questions, like all the time, because that's part of opening up miracles all the time.
Yeah. So, okay. And can we talk just a little bit more about that feeding? So people can just like get a little bit more information. They could get a little more curious about it. Cause I did notice that with the COVID stuff, but then I started to look at other places in my life. Like maybe you have like dramatic friends or the family drama that's going on, right? And you're like, okay, like tell me the gossip or what did she say this time? And you're like almost intrigued by it. And I sense that it's like you're feeding it and you're like asking for more.
It's so true. And that's exactly, that example is so great. Because it's like, what's going to happen next? Like, who's going to try to control me next? As if you're just sitting there, waiting for it all to fall. And it's like, it's true. It's like you perpetuate it when you give it that kind of energy. You're like, well, surely something else is going to go down today, and I noticed that with myself with the COVID stuff. Like, I was like, oh man, I actually am like there's some level of it really is actually, I would say, traumatic activation of the nervous system, which is a story kind of for another time. But it's like, when we have this PTSD world that we live in, right? And all these things that go on in the world, they're all part of this this constant PTSD kind of stimulus that we live under. And we're always like, what do I need to fight now? What do I need to overcome now? What do I need to fight now? And it's this like hyperactivation of our neurology, but also our psychology and our energetics and all of that, where we're just constantly looking to avert or avoid threat or danger. And so when you look from that place, and I used to be a somatic, like a body-centered trauma therapist for a long time. So I worked a lot with this, with the nervous system and bodies, and like helping people to change that, like to change their neurology, which would change their like psycho-emotional state. And so it's so interesting because it's like we're geared up toward the threat of whatever, whether it's control or whatever. And we sort of think that if we're constantly watching it and watching for it and staying ahead of the curve, that we're going to be okay, but what we're doing is we're keeping our nervous systems like ratcheted to the roof, and also feeding the reality that is trying to perpetuate itself, instead of being like, I'm going to relax and I'm actually going to create something completely different. And y'all can do whatever you're going to do. And at some point it's going to die. It's going to peter itself out. Everybody's going to know what's going on and get sick of it.
It almost sounds like an addiction.
Yeah.
Like, keep up here. And then when you relax, you're like, you're not getting that high. Wow.
It is an addiction. It's a chemical addiction. It's a neurological addiction. It's part of how you fit into reality. And going beyond that is like the choice to relax into the intrigue of possibility and consciousness, and to be like, hey, like, I'm not going to be stopped by anything, because that's just not how I roll. And there's a million ways around everything. And that's my reality. So let's go.
Yeah. Oh, I'm loving this conversation. Thank you so much. So can we play for a minute? We have this one choice of living, the PTSD, the up here, the stimulation, the intrigue. And then you showed the possibility of relaxing and being intrigued in possibility, but it didn't have that same, I'm intrigued about possibility now, right?
It's more like, I'm intrigued about the possibility of overcoming problems, Yes. But actual possibility has nothing to do with problems.
Yeah. Whoo! That felt like a meme moment.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
So now let's look at someone that they're recognizing, whoa, I have a bit of an addiction to this. Yeah. They want to, wean off the addiction or whatever. They look at intrigue to possibility that has that space, that has that relaxation. Are there any tools you'd recommend to, like, what if they feel they want that hit? They have that, and have you felt that pulse since you made that choice?
Totally. Yeah. That's a great question. Well, I mean, the thing about this type of an addiction, and I love that you said that, because I haven't really looked at it like that. And that's really a part of it. The thing about this type of an addiction is that it's not like you're picking up a drink. This is way more insidious and subtle. And in a lot of ways, a lot more damaging, because it's not, I mean, picking up a drink if you're an alcoholic is not just a behavior, you know, but it's something that can be identified by a behavior that, you know, and the first step for a lot of people is to, you know, change that behavior. So this is a little bit different because it's the energetic reality of how you be with yourself in the world, you know, so it's not easily, you've got to catch yourself, you know, you've got to go, oh, I'm doing the equivalent of picking up a drink right now, or taking a hit, or, you know, like this thought that I'm having is the equivalent of that, you know. Okay, do I desire to, like, if I was an alcoholic and I had committed to not drinking anymore and I picked up a drink, I would know that I was overriding that commitment, you know. So it's, you've got to kind of be present enough to know what's going on in your world, you know, because it's not a visual behavior, right? So, okay, so I'm going there now. And here's the thing, this is where it gets really cool, because it's not wrong. You know, I mean, it's not wrong to drink when you're an alcoholic. It's not wrong to say you're not going to and then drink. Like, none of it's wrong, you know. It's not wrong to be intrigued by it, you know, but to choose it is different than feeling swept up in the tide of it and you have no choice and here I go, you know. That's a different scenario, you know. So if you're like, I'm feeling the, like, and I do this because I went through this phase where I was really intrigued by COVID, you know, and I was like, all the stuff, like reading the articles and watching the videos and da 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 da. And I was like, I'm a little too intrigued by this. Like, I'm a little too caught up in this whole thing. And it's not like, it's not relaxing, you know?
Yeah.
And so when you ask tools, so I'm getting to the tools. So A, recognize when you're doing it, you know, and go, okay, I'd like to change this. So B, one of the tools that I started using was interesting point of view, which is one of the 10 keys to total freedom in access consciousness. And it actually seems way too good to be true, way too simple, but it's very, 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 very dynamic. I'm on the 29th day of a 30-day challenge, and it's been actually quite amazing, doing it with some other people as well. And so so the way that tool works is you go, interesting point of view, I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, I have this point of view, and you let it create space in your world, you know, and you can use it on other people. Interesting point of view, they have this point of view. Or interesting point of view, I have a point of view about their point of view. And it actually creates space, but you have to also be willing to go to get over the addiction to the charge, you know, and to have the space. In order for it to work, you have to choose the space that it's going to create. Otherwise, it won't create space. It's just random words, right?
Well, and you know what you're showing me right now is, I didn't actually quite get it till just this moment. When you're in that PTSD, you have less space. So it almost fills the space. Much. It's like, so you're also addicted to having no space.
Totally. It's like you're compressed in upon yourself, you know, and because you can't occupy a lot of space and be traumatized. Like, they're mutually exclusive. You know, trauma is a contraction of everything, basically, you know. And so if you're occupying a lot of space, you have access to your being. Trauma is also an invalidation of your being. If you have that dynamic access to your being, then you're just automatically occupying a lot of space, you know. So there's that, and that's, you know, I mean, we could talk for hours about that tool alone. I mean, it's just been so dynamic. And if people haven't heard of it before, there's a book called The 10 Keys to Freedom, written by Gary Douglas and Dane here from Access Consciousness. So you can read about it in there. And I also have, actually, on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist with all the videos I've done over the 30 days. So,
oh, cool. Maybe we'll link that in this for you guys.
Cool. But so what else did I want to say about that? Because there's something else about, well, when you use interesting point of view, you get space, and then you actually just have more choice. So this is one of the things that has changed for me with this over the course of doing this 30 days was I really stopped giving a hoot, a fuck, whatever you want to say, whatever I'm allowed to say. I just
Yeah.
said it, so I said it. About it all. Like I kind of just naturally happened, but it was also my demand of like, why do I care so much about this? This is all a bunch of lies. Like I know how to create miracles and beyond all of it. Like it's not relevant to me, you know? So I started reminding myself of that. And I also started watching that energy of the intrigue and the addiction and the, you know, without calling it that until now. And there are times now where I'm like, I'm going to do a little YouTube binge right now, you know,
Yeah.
and I go and I watch, you know, Tucker Carlson or whoever, JP Sears. JP Sears is my main news source, you know.
Good. I love that he's a source.
Yeah. Tucker, I love Tucker. It's hilarious. I'm so not a Republican or a Democrat or right or left, but I love how he exposes stuff. So I do what I like, but it's a choice. So I'm like, I'm going to do a little binge. I'm just going to like curl up in my bed with my phone and just YouTube binge, you know? And then when I know that it's tipping into, this is no longer like productive for me, I stop.
Yeah.
You know, and it's part of like one of the things we talk about with addiction and access is that you're not an addict forever, you know, contrary to a very, very, very popular belief. You know, you can have been an alcoholic, stopped, and still have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever, a cocktail, and be fine. You know, like that's not a problem. You know, it's the choice and the energy behind the choice.
Yeah. Wow. Can you talk a little, because I love what you're saying, to choose to do that binge. And so for some people, I get that they would be like, but what if I miss information that I actually require? Can you share a little, like the difference between like, is there something that needs my attention? Is there information I need? Like, say I'm going to travel and I kind of need to know the restrictions and stuff rather than going into that intrigue place.
Yeah, this is such a great question. And this is one of what I think is again, it's going to be, and it already is for a lot of people, one of the greatest gifts of COVID and all this stuff is that there's so much, there's so many people vying for your attention. There's all these mudslinging, that's misinformation. No, that's misinformation. No, that's misinformation. No, that's like on all sides of the fence, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And there's such a gift in that because you can no longer just turn on YouTube or the news or whatever and expect that somebody's going to give you something that's true for you, you know? But with access consciousness, it's about knowing that, you know, this is the target of access consciousness, is to empower people to know that they know, not to know what they know, because that changes. But if you know that, you know. And are you willing to be so audacious, even in a pandemic, to live your life based on the fact that you know?
Wow.
And you don't have to, you know, be fed all this stuff. Now, that includes going, I mean, I just did this because I'm going to Europe next week. That includes going, what I did, I think it was earlier today, I went, I need to look at the stuff on the United website for what I need. And I need to make sure I know where to go to get the test in time to be the to fulfill all the stuff, you know? So I did, I went, I looked, I was like, okay, 72 hours, it can be this test or this test. Okay, now I need the information as to where I can go in town, that I can get the test and get the results in a short period of time. I need to find that out, you know? So it's not about not giving yourself information.
Yeah.
But you know when you require it and you know where to go to get it. And it will always make you lighter.
Oh, I think that's a really key piece there, because it will always make you lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will, what's true for you will always make you lighter.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you going to say?
Well, sometimes we feel like we're just getting information, but we're getting heavier and heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, you could look, am I actually just here getting information right now?
Yeah.
Is this information true for me? Is there somewhere else I need to go to,
Yeah.
to get?
Yeah.
more clear information.
Yeah. And the purpose of information is actually to give you more awareness. Like that's what it should be. If you're functioning from, if you're choosing to live from awareness and to navigate your life from that space, then information serves to give you greater awareness. It doesn't stop at information. I can use this to have more awareness of what's required.
Wow. Yeah. That was beautifully said. Oh, I love it. Okay. I would love to switch it a little bit and to go into now like this possibility piece. Like what is it like to be intrigued in possibility? What have you noticed showing up even for you? Like,
oh man, it's been a time of some serious miracles in my life. And like, I got to say, since I did this 30 days of interesting point of view, it's really changed absolutely everything for me. And this is a tool that I've been using for many years, but I went, okay, I need to turn this up because I'm not being this with COVID and not being this with this area of my life, da, 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 wherever I'm not being it, I know that if I be it, there will be so much more possibility and so much more miraculousness. So I'm going for that. There's nowhere in my life that I desired to have a limitation over possibility, like truly. And I had to get real with myself and go, is that actually true? And I was like, finally, yeah, it actually is, like, because we do love our drama,
yeah.
And so it's been interesting because I've had to really make some big changes in my life recently, some very dynamic changes. And it's been so cool because it's, and this goes, so one of the other 10 keys to freedom is live as the question, not as the answer, right?
Yeah.
So I've really committed to that. I mean, the 10 keys, like use them and your whole life will change. Live them. You don't really need anything else, honestly. Like really, you don't. Like they are so dynamic in how they work. But they're deep, like they go deeper, and they deepen each other all the time, which is really cool. But so I've gotten into the question a lot more from the interesting point of view challenge and been like, okay, so what do I really want to be asking for here? Because when we ask a question, we invite the universe to deliver awareness. Like we not that it's like bestowed upon us from the universe, but we're choosing us. But like a true question is expansive and it opens up where you're go like, I don't know, like not, I don't know the diminishment of me, but like, I don't like, there's something beyond what I'm aware of now that I don't have access to that I'd love to know with a capital K. And universe, show me, body, show me, like what's possible here that I've never considered, and you just live that question, you ask that question, or what else is possible, or how does it get even better than this? Like two really kind of very popular questions in access consciousness. You live from those questions and your life will just keep expanding and expanding and expanding. But it's when you go, okay, cool, now I'm going to dive into the cesspool, because you want to hijack yourself, not because you're like, oh, I'm just totally curious what's happening over here with all of these strange people doing strange things, and then you're like, okay, it's different,
So do you think are you going to do the 30-day challenge again or something with it?
Well, what I do know is we've been doing it and I have this Telegram chat it's just sort of like for my creations. It's called Heather Nicols Creations. And we've had it for a long time. And we've been asking, here's an example. Okay. We had been asking for literally probably, I don't know when we started it, but maybe like a year. What can we do with this group? Like what can we create with this group? Like we would really like to have more engagement with people not because we want to sell shit or whatever, but just like, let's play with people here, like this is a fun place to play. And my team and I would just like explore this and ask and explore and ask. And it was like, like nothing really. And then one day I was like, I'm doing interesting point of view. Hey, maybe other people want to do it with me. Hey, let's just do it in my Telegram chat, So it's created this really beautiful engagement in that group and a lot of people getting a lot out of it. So doing it again, I don't know that I'm going to do it again, but I'm certainly not going to stop. It's not like, okay, I'm done with that now. I mean, interesting point of view. Right. It's a tool you want to use every day more and more and more and more for the rest of your life and beyond, and there's a lot of other tools that have opened up from it. So I will be continuing some sort of exploration there.
And people can join?
Yeah. It's, if you go to heathernicols.com/telegram, it just forwards you to the link and to the Telegram link, and you can join. It's open to anybody.
We'll put a link in here too. And what I loved about that what you just shared, Heather, was you were showing an example of being intrigued by possibility. We have this group. What do we want to create there? What would be fun? How could we engage? And just curiously, but not even looking for the answer, and allowing that intrigue to go for a year. And then it's like, oh,
yeah. And I have to say, there were times where we did look for an answer, where I was like, I know that there's something else possible, but this is where you got to let go of the timing. Time is just not relevant. It's like, all right, well, I am always aware way further down into the future, than I realized that I am. So I was aware of an energy that was available in a year, let's say, and I was like, now, how about now? How about now? And it was like, and then I wasn't even like looking at it or asking. It just went, oh, let's use the group. Oh, cool. Look what's gotten created, so yeah.
Wow. That easy.
That easy. Ask and know that you shall receive. And it won't look how you think it's going to, and it won't show up when you think it's going to, but it will. So you can relax.
Oh, thank you so much. So such a beautiful conversation. And I kind of love just leaving them on this space.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is great. Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Hope to have you back sometimes. We're going to have lots of links for you guys to explore more with Heather. So thanks again. Bye.
Thank you for exploring the curious universe with me. Your curiosity matters. And what if together we could create a greater, more curious world?